passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De i semifinale igjen!
Hola, amigos, and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. And that's all the Spanish I'm going to give you today, or any day, in fact. We're finished with the first round of the Women's Handball World Championship, and it's time to do a little check-in with me, Chris O'Reilly, also joined by Brian Campion.
Hello, Chris.
And Alex Kulesh.
¿Cómo estás?
Excellent. That's already more than I have. So, Brian, I think you're the expert Spanish speaker here. Give us something.
Hola. ¿Qué tal? Vale mano. There you go. That's...
Oh, very good. Very good. So,
I could have prepared something, Chris, if you just texted me beforehand. My God. It's pressure.
We're coming at this at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is among the earliest ones we've ever done. I think we've tried a 7:30 before. Didn't go very well, but that hasn't deterred us from giving this one a go. So apologies if the chat is rubbish. We're going to, I guess, talk mostly about the Women's World Championship. Preliminary round is over. What are your impressions from abroad? We'll start with Copenhagen.
Yeah, I've definitely watched all the big games. I got Uzbekistan and Puerto Rico in yesterday, you know, the big hitters. I think there was a slate of games, the early slate of games yesterday that was really, really for the diehards. We had Uzbekistan, Puerto Rico breaking it down. We had Cameroon, Poland. We had Kazakhstan, Iran, and Angola, Slovenia played in a draw, which was actually fun. Good to see a good game. But how is it on the ground? One thing I've noticed, and I probably wasn't expecting, is the amount of fans so far.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because of the setup of the arenas. They're a little bit smaller there, but they're looking good. Even for these really minnow nation games, there's been some fans there. We haven't seen any fully empty arenas, which is good to see from Spain. Where are you based, Chris?
So I've been based in Valencia for the first few days, which means going to Luria, which is the group with that has two groups. Every venue has two groups, but that has been the Germany-Hungary group, and it's been the Russia and Serbia group, and then also went up to Castellón for one day, which had Norway versus Iran and Romania versus Kazakhstan. But now gone up to Barcelona, because Granollers is kind of the hub for the rest of the championship with two main round groups and then all the knockout matches. So going to be in Barcelona now for the next 2 weeks. And yeah, it's a good impression of the fans there. My initial impression when I arrived was one of a bit of fear also from like the organizer side or the Spanish side, that there wasn't going to be many people there. I think on the opening day or two there weren't. I think the prices for the tickets were too high, but then they managed to fix it one way or another, either by inviting schools or inviting clubs. And yeah, it's not looked too bad at all. In Leiria for the last couple of days, it was fairly well packed. In Castellón yesterday, which Adrian Costeu, former guest on the show, working for the IHF as a writer, who's Romanian, told me that Castellón is the Romanian capital outside of Romania, which is really handy because Romania were playing there and they weren't even placed there. So yesterday there was a completely packed crowd for that game against Norway and a great atmosphere in there. So yeah, I think they've actually done fairly well. I think what you said about the arenas not being too big, I think they're all like 4,000 or 5,000 fans makes a big difference, because you can fit 1,000 or 2,000 in the main stand facing the TV, which is what they do, and then they stick the media behind the TV cameras or on that same side. It looks a lot better.
I think the big question we're all going to get to now, it's something that you touched on in that article you wrote for Strike Spiller, is obviously the new format of this championship. Do you want to get into that now, or is there anything else you want to say, Chris, before we get into that?
What did you make of it? What was your impression, Brian? The opening few days.
Well, I mean, it's gone fairly under the radar. I don't know if that's something to do with IHF losing their Instagram page directly before the tournaments, but it kind of seems like
#free handball hour.
It kind of seems like from the generally on Twitter and other social media platforms, it's kind of been a little bit low key so far, and I don't know whether that's to do with people had just looked at the first group of matches and thought, okay, I can start watching that once we hit the main round. I don't really know why, but it's been kind of dull online, I would say. Apart from a few feel-good stories, like I think probably the biggest one is probably after the Iran game, when the Iranian goalkeeper picked up player of the match, and the video for that alone, I think, was like 300,000 views on Twitter, which went, I suppose, in itself quite viral. So it's been, from the outside, a lot of hammerings and some feel-good stories. I think that's kind of been pretty much the summary from my perspective anyway.
I think just on the feel-good stories, I think we're stretching feel-good here. Again, when we look at previous feel-good stories, they tend to come from big performances from small nations where they really do make a difference and cause a shock or put in some sort of surprise game where you're like, okay, these guys really earned it. These people really earned it. The feel-good story with that Iran game, yes, it was a beautiful moment, but the final score was 41-9. And the goalkeeper who got the player of the match made seven saves. It's, of course, those 7 saves included 3 fast breaks against Norwegians. That's amazing. But, it's a real stretch on feel good. And, people are saying, this is going to inspire a generation of Iranian girls. And yes, in a way for Iran, for an Islamic country like that to participate in a women's championship is incredible. I don't think we can underestimate the hard work those players and that team would have had to go through to even be at the championship. But they lost 41-9. It's just a stretch when you talk about feel good.
I think it's probably the definition of feel good. I mean, I think the video itself made people feel good, if you know what I mean. And that's where my kind of looking at it kind of stopped. But I know what you mean. It's kind of like, you're not getting a boost from a kind of a shockingly good performance from a team that no one expected. It's been just loads of wipeouts, apart from maybe China or Congo, for example, who I think have played pretty well. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think it did make people feel good in that respect. But I don't know. I do wonder, when I look at it from the outside, I do wonder about the product that you're trying to show to people. So when people go, oh look, there's a handball world championship on, and we know our best friends from the guys from Barstool Sports, or whatever they're called, Barstool Sports came into my mind. They might think, oh, let's watch the women's handball world championship and then tune into Norway, Iran, or whatever, or Uzbekistan versus whoever, and see them getting absolutely hockeyed. So I do wonder about the product itself. While it is nice to see all these teams playing at a world championship, what are you trying to say about the sport being an elite sport itself when you qualify for a world championship and you have the whole first round of games, you have loads and loads of hammerings? And I do wonder about that. Yeah,
I think Chris, you made some really good points in your article. And if anyone hasn't seen it, do check it out on Strikespiller. You broke it down really well, and it's probably a bit shocking to see that number of 61% of games ending in a scoreline or a score difference of greater than 10 goals.
Yeah, 64.5%. So almost 2/3 of the games, which is pretty incredible. And and as I said in the article, I mean, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. You have to go over to the website and read it all yourself. But I just wanted to kind of put it in some context because, we can say it's terrible, but, people were also saying that January's preliminary round and some of the main round was terrible, that there were so many teams getting smashed. But when we take the 10 goal mark between sides, which, although is not perfect, is a good indicator of what a comprehensive victory is. Only 11 of 46 matches, so 23.9% in the men's World Championship in January, finished that way. And the women's World Championship from 2019 was basically smack bang in the middle at 41.6. So it's a huge increase in one-sided matches. And, there was a lot of, I said snarky comments. There was a lot of snarky comments over the last few days on social media, particularly from the Scandinavians, basically saying, okay, now the World Championship starts when Denmark are playing against South Korea, or Norway against Romania, or Sweden against the Netherlands, which, by the way, was a fantastic game. That was a really good game. But yeah, and so my solution, I'm going to lay it out, and I've seen a lot of potential solutions for this World Championship. I think the reasons behind some of the one-sided games are not just the quality of the teams, but I think they haven't been given a fair run at it when you think about COVID, and when you think about the, let's say, the second or third tier of women's handball as a whole. But this is a way to allow them to do it. If you want to have all 32 teams, just keep it that way, that's fine, but change the format a little bit. Begin the competition a few days earlier in one venue, which wouldn't be that much of a, let's say, a financial burden, because you're going to have one venue have the President's Cup anyway, just have it a bit earlier. And we see this already in other competitions like the Cricket World Cup, for example, where they have an opening round before the big teams come in. And that's what you do. You have the 12 lowest ranked teams, 4 groups of 3. The top team from each group qualify for the first main round, which is then a 24-team competition. And don't have it like the old World Championships where, again, a bunch of teams go through. Have it in groups of 4. Top 2 qualify, like in the men's Euro at the moment. So there's a bit of danger, a bit of jeopardy straight away. And then you have the big teams playing against each other already from the first round. And the teams that don't qualify for that 24-team tournament playoff in the President's Cup, all of those 12 teams get 5 matches no matter what. And they might actually get a chance to compete against teams at their own level at the beginning of the championship when they're at full strength, when they could probably show their best, which is what we don't get to see at the President's Cup all the time. And I feel that would be a big benefit, not just for them, primarily for them, because that's why these competitions are expanded, but also for the bigger nations as well.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems with the President's Cup, the way it is at the moment, is you have a lot of these teams who got battered anyway going into play against each other, and you often end up with a lot of really, really messy matches. Whereas if it's kind of like a pre-qualification thing, as you said, they have something to play for, and then when they do get to the main tournament, there is something to play for everybody involved. So it seems like a win-win. So congratulations, Chris, on this wonderful discovery. We'll be thanking you in 2 years' time.
I doubt they will.
But I think the question is, of course, the World Championship is something that is generally used to grow handball, and it's a good way to get it to countries on a global scale. But should the World Championship be that? Or should it be the best teams competing?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate topic, because does it help the smaller nations really develop at all when you're getting battered every 2 years? And I don't really particularly think so. Does it?
I mean, there have been some examples like Brazil. It was only in the 90s and probably early 2000s even that they were getting battered by double-digit scores and barely getting over 10 against the European sides. And people saw the potential in Brazil, and they took a drastic route to success. Then they had this collaboration with Hypo Niederösterreich and created a team that way, but then by 2013 they were world champions. So there is the potential there, but whether that's going to be the case in Iran or Puerto Rico, it's really hard to know. But I think the best thing for them is not to get battered right at the beginning, is to compete against teams at a similar level and then allow the best of those to emerge.
To be honest, I think, to answer my question, I think it's actually okay to use the World Championship to grow handball, because we have the European Championship. And everyone knows, apart from probably Brazil, on the women's side at least, South Korea sometimes, it is the European teams that are going to dominate. And we do have a competition every 2 years where we can truly say these are the top teams competing against each other. So why not use the World Championship to grow handball in the wider world, to give these countries an opportunity? And I agree that an opportunity isn't 2 games against Norway and Russia where they get smashed by 30. Your format does lend itself to some development, to some, when you're looking at a country and the country's media covering a team like this, an early win to build some hype is so much more valuable than a President's Cup run and a President's Cup win. So if the World Championship is being used to grow handball, then why not format it in a way that really gives these teams an opportunity to develop, to put their best foot forward? And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the top European teams anyway, for now. But maybe we have an opportunity to change that.
And think about, this was the main kind of motivation for me thinking about this format, is imagine Fatima Khalili, the Iranian goalkeeper, the 18 saves she had against Romania. Imagine that was against Puerto Rico to win their opening game. And that is it gives so much more than it's wow, 18 saves, but they still lost by 25 goals. Or 18 saves, but they've won. Or take it on the men's side. Gauthier Nvumbi, our nominee for World Men's Player of the Year, if he'd got his perfect 7 out of 7 in the first game for a victory, that would be even bigger than in a morale boosting loss. And I think that's the key reason behind it. But we are being very European centric here. But I look at Group 4, lads. Group 4, and Brazil, Japan and Argentina all battling it out for the quarterfinals. Here's one group where we have had some non-European teams take it to the, I guess we could say, the lower ranked European nations. But in one case, it's the bronze medalists from the Euro, Croatia. So we had Japan beat Croatia in the preliminary round, which was a really good victory for them. Croatia dealing with some COVID cases, as did Austria when they lost to Argentina. But we can't dwell on that too much, because when you're losing, you've always got injuries, or these days you've always got COVID cases, but you have to go and get the job done still on the court. You can only beat what's in front of you. And that's what Japan, Argentina and Brazil as well, who are top of the main round group alongside Spain, now have put themselves in a position to do. And Alex, you stopped me in the last podcast before I got too excited about this main round group. But you remember I was going to say it's a golden opportunity for one of these teams to get to the quarterfinal. And this is what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's a golden opportunity, but it's actually, again, it's a bit of a pity, because Brazil, Japan and Argentina have shown themselves to be quality sides. Brazil especially. And I think Brazil are a level above Japan and Argentina. So in essence, we do see a little bit of a, I think that's giving props to Brazil, and, Croatia are coming into the main round with 0 points. They are missing Micevic, so let's see what they could come with. But really, again, looking at the main round groups, the for me, the competitive one is Group 3. I think that one is the most open, with Hungary, South Korea, and Germany and Denmark vying for those first 2 places. Hungary and Germany and Germany have been quite impressive actually so far. They've flown a little bit under the radar, and they go into that group with 4 points. But I think there's a lot that can happen between those 4 teams. And the other one, there's always a game in the first group stage that decides a quarterfinal place. And that game was Netherlands versus Sweden. But in this case, they drew.
So it didn't decide anything.
but that was like it's one of those cases where we have this game that Netherlands and Sweden had destroyed their opposition in the first 2 matches, and were basically playing their first game of the tournament to potentially decide a quarterfinal place, because the main round group they're in. You would assume that, Romania may be the only roadblock there, but it comes down to the game between each other for that second group spot. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit too obvious with all this, and both Netherlands and Sweden can take points off Norway. But I think a win there for either of those teams would have probably given them a spot in the quarterfinal, especially because of the head-to-head advantage there. But that one's wide open as well, so a lot to play for.
Yeah, I like the Group 2, as you said, and funny yesterday, Netherlands-Sweden, such a good game, a thrilling end, and both teams in their post-match interviews were quite kind of disappointed, kind of relieved not to have lost, but were like, damn, we probably should have won that one. Now we're going to have to do something against Norway, and it's not a position you want to be going into the main round with. I think Group 1 is, it looks fairly straightforward with France and the Russian Handball Federation top of the group now, but that is a fully European group, and having seen a lot of these teams in action, like Serbia, Poland, and also Montenegro, who gave France a bit of a shock yesterday. They lost in the end, but gave them a good push. And Slovenia with Anna Gross and some good young players. It could be some random results there that shake things up a little bit. And with the Russian team, they looked really good against Serbia yesterday, but they are very young and I'd say untested at this level. So there could be a few stumbling blocks along the way for those two. And I'm not so... Group 3 you thought was particularly interesting. I'm not so sure about the South Koreans in this tournament. I think they've kind of gone for a full reset, with focusing on the Olympics. Germany's win over Hungary was huge for them. Like the first time in a number of years that they managed to not blow a close game. And that was the main takeaway for them. It was like, we actually won one of these, which has been their major downfall over the years. And so if they manage to not blow it against Denmark, they should be through to the quarterfinals.
Thankfully, they came up against Hungary, who are the queens of blowing important games and championships.
Yeah, it was that was it. I was watching the game. I was like, neither of these teams are very good at winning these matches. What's going on? I was fully expecting an own goal in the final second to make it a draw. But no, Germany held out to win that one.
But the Hungarian side is very young, isn't it? I mean, they seem to have... it seems to be a very... In one sense, a very inexperienced squad compared to what they would normally field.
And that we say that a lot about the Hungarian side, but they've gone even younger again. I mean, there's only 8 of the Olympic squad from this summer that's in the team for one reason or another. So, yeah, they are very young again. But they did fairly well. They've got spirit, those young Hungarians. And now we'll move on to our interview for the podcast. And interviews at this championship are... Well, they're easy enough to come by, but not easy enough to come by without a mask, which is the main reason why the mix zone audio is so terrible, and probably won't be using any of this at the championship. I did get an opportunity, though, to record outdoors with Kristina Liščević from Serbia, who's a really interesting character and someone who I think we've been thinking about getting on the podcast for a while, who's not just an established player at the top level for over a decade now, but also is a bit of a singer-songwriter. We talked about that and the championship and the new look Serbian squad.
A couple of days into the World Championship now, what are your opening impressions of your performances and the new team as well?
Yeah, I am actually very happy. I'm happy, first of all, about our energy. I think girls are pretty young, but very happy to be here. I think they appreciate them chance and they're hard workers. These two matches behind us show some results.
And we spoke very briefly after the first game, and you revealed that you only had one training session before playing that first game with the team, and it was the first chance you had to actually really see how the girls are playing and to get a feel for them. Now you've had a second game behind, and I guess a more comfortable game. How do you feel that has developed your relationship with the players?
I'm very thankful that they bring me here to be part of this group, because I appreciate. Even, when you are a player and you're training every day and then someone else came instead of you here and she didn't do any training, it sounds it's not very fair. But I'm very happy that I'm here with them, and day by day we are working every day for muscle to recover on the good way. They're also taking care about me, how much I'm standing on the field and how long I'm playing and how it's going and everything. And we have some trainings as well. So day by day, I'm very satisfied. And the most important is that there is no pain. And with the trainings, we are finding good relationship between each other.
And with Serbia over the years, there's always been topics with players, some of the big name players not joining the team or taking breaks from the team, depending on the coaches or the situation. You've always been a consistent part of the squad almost no matter what. I mean, it feels like your commitment to the team isn't really shaky. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how you approach playing with the national team and what it means to you in this regard?
Well, I was not all the time in. I had I think 2 years pause between then and now. But yeah, I'm always saying yes to my national team, and for me, I feel very proud to be here and present our country as better we can. So. Yeah, I'm always crossing fingers for some results. I'm always hoping for the best, and I'm always deeply inside of myself seeing us far, so sometimes it's good, sometimes and bad, but we never give up, and I hope one time before I stop with national team it will give some good results, that you can say goodbye with some, I don't know, nice results.
A medal.
A medal. That would be the best.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of hopeful moments as well with the team. I mean, the last World Championship, for example, showed a lot of potential for what could happen, and then there was the disappointment of the Euro then last year. When you're coming into a championship like this, also looking at a lot of the new players in the squad, how do you think that this team compares to the teams you've played with in recent years?
Well, I guess that coach, by calling someone, have some idea what he really wants this year. So no matter who is coach and no matter how, but they always have them way of work. So this World Championship in Japan, it ends very nice. We didn't have some small luck in the end of the match. I think it was Norway, but yeah, we have been very proud about our result. But like this every year, I guess each coach who is coming, it have some idea about what kind of players he wants and what exactly is his goal and how he wants to play. And then he's choosing players by his systems, for example.
Yeah. And with Uroš, the coach, I mean, he's had a lot of, I guess, a reputation with Krim in the past and with the Slovenian team, with working with a lot of young players and trying to develop talent in that way. How have you seen his work with the younger players in the team, and does that reputation come across?
Well, I have been working with him in Hungary in one club that we played together, and we have really nice connection. He's really hard worker coach. He spends a lot of his hours per day by watching videos and analyzing players and analyzing people against who we are playing. I'm very happy with him, me personally, and I can see other girls as well. And Krim had a really nice time with him as well, especially with young players. I think that I love working with him. I work with him, and I think other girls as well. So for the moment, we are happy. For the moment, we are happy, and we will see how long he can stay here and how big results he can make.
And it seems like you have a very dynamic relationship with him. I was watching in that first game when you came on, almost every single time there's discussions between the two of you and talking about how you want to play the next attack or about how the last attack goes. What kind of things are you talking about exactly?
Yeah, I think he sees the best, you know, from little before. When you are close to the defense, then it's you don't see that good what you exactly can do, but sometimes he's really giving you good advices, like maybe you should try 6, and then this is like go 1 against 1 here or there, you know, or someone needs to come in, or maybe try to push them to go faster or something like that. But he always has some kind of advice, what he think or what I think, and it's nice relationship if you can talk with someone about that.
So you prefer that kind of way? You don't need to just focus on yourself in the game. You're happy to talk about the situations you're facing in defense? Yeah,
this is mostly what he's like. You know, it starts from the middle. So I starts from the middle, like action that he wants. He's like, okay, do that, and then work for this person or for yourself. So yeah, I like this way of communication, and that works good. And
so yesterday you had a very comfortable win over Cameroon, or a high-scoring win in the end, and it's been a big topic in this championship for the last few days about the expansion to 32 teams and whether, you know, that it should be like this, whether the teams here should be playing against the likes of the big European teams. I mean, for you being on the court, I think that's the most important perspective to get the actual players and how they're perceiving it. So what is your perspective on it?
Well, I think we have good schedule right now, because we had very important match like as a first one. Then we had like, let's say, one easier, maybe to get to give a chance to the to players who didn't feel yet how is it to be on the field, and I'm happy that each player also scored this day, and I guess this is also good for the self-confidence for everybody, especially for the young ones. So everybody get enough minutes that their body feels good, and then we need to just put full focus on the Russian team, who is really playing amazing games in the last period. So
that's the kind of perspective I'm getting a lot from players from the European teams playing against the so-called weaker teams, that you're focusing on yourself. You don't really care whether you're winning by 20 goals in a game like this, and you don't feel kind of disrespected or so.
No, it just goes, you know, like maybe in that moment you are more focused on the fast attack, or, you know, like contrast. There are always some exercises what you're focused on, or maybe on yourself, or maybe to not get injured, or, you know, like many things, but there's always something good. Of course, it's not unrespectful to win with a lot of goals. It just happened.
Speaking about the overall tournament, I mean, there's with the young team, is there a certain kind of goal you're looking for here, a certain level in the competition? I mean, taking it game by game is always the obvious answer to this, but is there something you've talked about before the championship? This is what we want to achieve?
No, actually this time no. It's pretty young team, and we didn't know how we are functioning together. So through this preparation part, we try to get feelings between each other, and we're trying to respect each other. We're trying to talk a lot and to try to find what is the best for everybody. And we didn't talk exactly how far we would like to go, but I'm completely sure that everybody will be very happy if we pass the first round, and then even more happy if we pass the second round. So, of course, you know, you as a sport player, person who is working every day, of course your goal is always to go as far as you can. But no, we didn't talk about anything like that.
I want to ask you a little bit finally about the other career you have. You said you're a sports person, but also an artist, right? And you had your most recent release, was it last year, towards the end of the year? Or the early this year, wasn't it? The most recent song. From that side of it, like how do you approach it? Is this something that's actively on your mind? Do you try to like take some time every week to work on your music? How does it fit into your life?
You know, music is really like that huge part of me that I cannot live without it. But you know, every time at home I have my instruments and it's giving me just like kind of like people who are meditating. This is kind of meditation for me, you know. And I really love this part of my life, and it's really relaxing me, and I don't know, letting me to put out everything I feel. But I do not think on the way like, oh, I would like to build up some career for that, or no, I do not still think about this. Of course, I would be very happy if someone would like to work with me, because I am working always like this part like a pleasure. But what I am working and what I'm focused on is right now handball, and as well business that I have at home. But this is like kind of, I don't know, like pleasure, you know. And sometimes with the pleasure you get some nice things, you know.
You've managed to mix handball, and particularly in the last song as well, where you had the entire Valchia squad in on the music video. It started being played a lot in the arenas as well. I mean, that must have been an odd situation where you've heard yourself in the arena, your music being played, and you thought, oh my God, this is odd.
Honestly, if my girls are putting in the bus or something like that, then I feel a bit embarrassed, you know, like I'm really like, oh man, I don't want to exist here. But I'm very happy when I see someone tagging me because, I don't know, we are warming up with your song, it's so cool. I love to see that, of course. But if I am there, then I prefer not.
So I mean, every championship there are always these official songs, right? And I've thought to myself, you know, how great would it be to have an actual athlete who's competing, for example, the Euro next year, which is going to be in your neighbouring countries in Macedonia, Slovenia and Montenegro. I mean, we think there's a potential collaboration there, or would you die of embarrassment hearing it every single day in the arena? That will be
so cool. Imagine, that will be so cool. And I think pretty historical, right? I don't remember that any sport player have been done something like that, but that would be very cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, every time we have these songs by people who maybe nobody outside of the country knows who they are, but in this case, everyone would know that it's coming from an athlete in the competition.
Yes, it can be interesting.
There you go. Listen out. Thank you very much, Kristina.
Thank you.
I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win, alright. I'm gonna win this fight. It calls my fight, yeah. Win, I'm gonna win, alright. I'm gonna win this fight. It calls.
Okay, so thank you to Kristina. And before we wrap up on this pod, I think it's time for a little bit of predictions there. We did tease about how some of the groups in the main round are interesting in one way or another. Time for our predictions now. Which 8 teams are going to qualify for the quarterfinals? And I'm going to start with Brian Campion.
From Group 1, I think France are definitely going to go through. And I think from what I've seen so far, I can't see, I don't think Slovenia will beat Russia. So I'll imagine it'll be France, Russia, it stays the way it is. Group 2, Norway have another cushy start to that group against Puerto Rico. So I'd imagine they're going to have 2 tough games against Sweden and the Netherlands, but I'll say it'll be Norway and, oh God, Norway. Norway, Sweden. I'll go for. That's tricky though. That's a tough one to call. Group 3, I'm not convinced about Germany just yet, because I think the Hungarian side they came up against were a little bit suspect. Not suspect, which is a bit young. So I would go for Denmark, and this is taking too long, isn't it, lads? Sorry, I should have just had all my my teams ready. Actually, I'm going to go back on what I said. Denmark, Germany. We're going to leave it the way it is. And no surprises, I think, in the last group. We'll have Spain with maximum points, and we'll then go for, Yeah, I think we'll go for Brazil. Boring predictions. Sorry, lads. Nothing shocking there.
Yeah, and I think that might be just the case here, that we're going into the main round here, and the teams on 4 points are the ones that will qualify. Pretty much the same. And I see the Netherlands actually qualifying ahead of Sweden, because I think they will beat Norway, because that's kind of what they do. And I think they have a bigger chance to get a result against Norway to go through. But otherwise, yeah, top 2 teams in each group probably coming through. There will be some interesting games, but if I'm being honest, it's that second level of European teams that hasn't impressed me too much so far. But again, I'm basing all of this on pretty much one game, because
So which game was that?
One game
per team.
Per team, where they had to be competitive. So pretty much basing it on that, anything can happen. Let's see how it progresses. It's always exciting to have an Argentina-Brazil game in the main group round, and always a bit of a pity, because if anything, I'd like both of those teams to keep progressing. But as it stands, top 2 teams in each group will go through from my side.
So in the end, it's basically just Netherlands or Sweden.
Well, I'd say another one which would be up a little bit up in the air would be Denmark in group 3. So their game against Hungary, the first game of the match, that could be a bit of a banger. They should easily beat the Czech Republic, but then they come up against Germany in the last game. So I think that's one which is maybe a little bit up for contention as well.
Yeah, that's true. If Denmark lose to Hungary, then you have the potential for this 3-way tie at the end of the group, which is always fun for the handball mathematicians. Just on group 2, because Sweden play Norway first, before Netherlands, so Sweden, Norway is in the second day of games on the 11th. I think they're going to have a better chance to get a decent result against them, because Norway in the final day of the main round are not going to blow it against the Netherlands. I think that's the problem for the Netherlands. They're playing Norway in the final day of the main round. Maybe we'll catch up again just before the quarterfinals when we know a little bit more about these teams and what they're capable of at this level. But still, a lot of interesting stuff to have been discussed today. Thank you very much, boys. And also, Alex, we're going to have our fan poll for the Men's World Player of the Year, right?
Exactly. We will definitely do that.
Alex has it ready to go. He's just it's like waiting for the raging bull to get even more angry and let it loose. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you again soon. Goodbye.